Greetings and welcome to the Warhammer 40,000 Kill Team video, where today I'm going over more buffs and nerfs needed for the upcoming October Balance Dataslate. But before we get into things, please remember to like and subscribe as well as comment. Let me know what you thought of today's video if you found it useful and helpful. Remember, I've got a Discord you can check out for free in the episode description below, and a affiliate code at Games, and a affiliate code Discord code at Crossfire Games, and a Patreon if you want to give me some more support as well. But yeah, I'm going over balance changes we need for Kill Team because the game isn't really balanced. This is one of my annual videos I do every about 3 months. This is a little bit later, but it's because I'm back from America, so let's get on with it. So the state of the meta is it's pretty bad, and honestly the meta hasn't been good since Blood and Zeal has been released. That was actually the first time the game balance really derailed, because literally before Blood and Zeal, we were, after that Balance Dataslate, we were in a great spot, and the meta's never really recovered since the power creep introduced with that set. We've also had minimal changes to the top / overperforming teams, and if you're paranoid, you may think like they're trying to protect those teams for like sales reasons, but that doesn't really make sense because everything Kill Team related has been selling out instantly for the past 3+ years. But we've had more and more power creep. Ravenous were like arguably some delayed power creep. We didn't realize how good they were until people started like abusing them with tac ops and stuff. But then also Tomb World, both teams, especially Canoptek, are clear signs of power creep once again, and it's just not really good. We need more extensive nerfs on top of buffing weaker teams, because with the last Balance Dataslate, we only got like 2 teams who got very minor buffs. Most of the underperforming teams weren't really touched, and then the overperforming teams were just like gently tapped on the wrist. So the meta has been poisonally stagnant for nearly 6 months. But once again, suggestions are based off of stats, so maybe losing like the tournament stats as well as my own tournament experience. They are for fun. Like, once again, these probably won't all happen. Like, they literally did not happen last time, so it's just for fun, just relax. And if a faction isn't mentioned, it's because they're fine. Like, so don't need any changes. So this is why you're not gonna, because I'm mainly focusing on the stats and like personal experience, because we've also had approved ops 2025. I don't think we need that many extensive changes, because a lot of teams, for example, like spoilers, Rattlings, really benefit from the new approved ops 2025 system with the new tac ops and missions. So let's get on with it. So for core rule changes, once again, I think you should only get the additional command point for going second if it was given to you, not if you choose to go second. That is actually a really good balance change. As I've repeated before, it's something Age of Sigmar did to address like the going second issue. So that actually would help a lot. And like literally, please just clarify how these tac ops interact with the kill teams. It's absolutely bizarre how many strange interactions we have with the approved ops 2025 tac ops and the kill teams. Like, for example, how is expendable actually supposed to work with all these new tac ops? Like, I can understand it being problematic with the new teams, but not with mechanics that have been in the game for like so long at this point. It's really bizarre how Games Workshop didn't foresee these being issues, or at worst were like, we'll answer in an FAQ, because Approved Ops 2025 was released about nearly 2 months ago, and we still have no solid idea on how they actually interact with a lot of teams. So this isn't really a core rule change. It's just like, please tell us how like these kill teams interact with all the new tac ops. So starting off with buffs, it's all in alphabetical order, right? It just makes my life easier. Starting with Angels of Death. Angels of Death aren't really doing that well, and especially with Deathwatch, it's kind of just like, wow. So I think they only need a little buff, which, you know, I think is fair now that they've lost the jeweler power. So firstly, Intercessor Warriors get Ceaseless instead of Balance when Devastator Doctrine is played, and then Assault Intercessor Warriors get Ceaseless instead of Balance when Assault Doctrine is played. So this only affects their basic warriors, because they are basically one of the few kill teams with basic warriors that don't really do anything special. It doesn't benefit their specialists or leaders, and it just makes more synergy. Notably, I haven't said like they get Ceaseless during the normal doctrine, the 6-inch range one, because that's just too good and it would affect like their shooting too much. At least it shows that, for example, melee warriors get more better when in melee, and then the intercessor warriors are more better when they're firing at long range. So it's not like a huge useful buff, but it's just a nice thing to make their standard warriors stand out a bit more, just because they usually take around 2 basic warriors. That would help a lot. Battleclade do need some buffs. They are a very powerful kill team, but they've generally been underperforming with the stats, but that's partly because of how powerful the top teams are, and like melee teams really hurt this team. But personally, I would say Incantation of the Iron Soul changed to only work on normal damage, but now there's no need to roll a dice. It just automatically happens, but it reduces damage by 1 to a minimum of 3. So at the moment, it works on any like normal or crit damage to a minimum of 2, but it's on a 5 up, right? So you're always like randomly rolling that. So you remove the random RNG-ness, you increase the damage cap a bit, so it's to a minimum of 3 instead to a minimum of 2, and it only works on normal damage. But I think this would be much better overall, because now you lose the randomness of it like not working, and it does now guarantee that you're more survivable against normal damage. And it makes sense that as long as your opponent gets lucky with crits and you don't get any crit saves, they still have a way to play around it. But I think that would make the team more durable, because the biggest problem I see with them is just like they get overwhelmed and rushed down. But for example, at least if like a Goremonger charged them and didn't get any crits, you could block them out and actually live, and then fall back, and then have like, if you're free AP, or fall back and shoot, or fall back and then have someone network counteract and shoot. So that would actually be really cool for the team, and they're only 10 operatives. I think that would help a lot. For Deathcore, I'm like repeating myself again. So gas bombardment doesn't affect friendly operatives, because at the moment it does, and they have gas masks. So in my headcanon, when the gas bombardment is dropped, the Deathcore take off their masks and breathe it in, because they're just so tough. But they literally wear gas masks, so they shouldn't be affected by gas bombardment. And then also the Veterans Bionic Arm, just increase to 4 attacks. Come on, just give me the Bionic Arm, you know, Bionic Arm! For Elucidian Starstriders, this is kind of like reverting a change that happened at the start of the edition. So Disciplinarian allows Ceaseless and Balanced to stack, and then Merciless can stack with Ceaseless and Balanced. So basically, it gives your leader Ceaseless and Balanced, and then for your Armsmen, they get Ceaseless and Balanced as well, instead of just Ceaseless. Now, before I was like, oh, you know, there is a problem in the game with there being too much Ceaseless and then Ceaseless and Balanced. But for Elucidian Starstriders, they haven't been performing well. They are a 10 operative kill team, and it just means they might have like basically Relentless Crack Grenades and a Relentless Leader, but then it gives them some tools into melee teams without buffing them over much. So I think this would be a nice change for the team, and you know, it wouldn't be too much of a crazy suggestion. Now, Exaction Squad, they need some buffs, but they're also a very solid kill team. Like, they're very, like, anti-meta team, but I do think they just need some minor tweaks. And I think the easiest thing to do with this kill team is allow special issue shells can be used twice per turning point. So it now means you get 2 piercing one-shots against Space Marines, and against other teams, you get more use out of your special ammunition. After speaking to, like, our veteran Exaction Squad player, they think this change alone would just be enough to help them, especially in the elite matchup. And to be honest, I think it would just be enough. It's a nice little tweak. You get more out of your shotgun warriors, encourages you to not like fully like, you know, balance out your subjugated usage. So I think this would be a nice change without overly breaking the kill team. Then for Farstalker Kinband, I'm just repeating myself here once again, but Cutthroats grants rending in addition to the +1 attack bonus, and if an operative already has the rending rule, then their attacks gain lethal 5 up. So this is really good on your Stalker and your Kroot Hounds. It allows the team to, especially if they can just roll a crit, to punch up into 8 wound teams, which they do oddly kind of struggle into, and even 7 wound teams if they can't get that, you know, 4th damage or 4 hits. So I think that's a really nice way to buff the team without breaking their damage. You know, it'd be really cool. It also makes the Stalker a lot better, and I think with that change, that should be enough for the kill team without making them absurd. But I think it'd be a really interesting change in a positive way for the Farstalker Kinband. Then for Hand of the Archon, also repeating myself here, just give stimulated senses back to Ceaseless for rerolls, for shooting and defense. That's all this kill team needs. Just give them back. That's all they need. Bring it back. Bring it back for good. Like, literally, that's all we need. Like pain tokens are still quite risky to generate, and it just allows the team to maintain the tempo they get from being aggressive, either like with the ceaseless defense dice or just ceaseless balanced shooting. This team really needs it, and it's like the only thing they need. Just give them it back, please. Then for Hearthkyn Salvagers, I would change the grudge token wording so it stacks with the accurate rule, because as it stands, because grudge tokens specifically say you retain a dice instead of just changing it like with severe, it doesn't stack with the accurate change. So just change the wording on grudge tokens so Hearthkyn Salvagers can actually use the accurate one guns again. You know, they don't feel penalized for using the accurate weapon rule. And then for climbing rigs, I think if you just change it to treat all climbable distance as a maximum of 1 inch instead of just reducing your climb distance by 1, I think that'd just be really useful. While it does, you know, you could argue, oh, but then you'll never take ladders. I think that's fine, because then it gives Hearthkyn Salvagers even more options to take. They are only a 5 movement team, and this way they become more mobile despite their movement of 4, like movement of 5. So, you know, they do get a little bit more mobile, and they can get a little bit more angles on shooting. But I think these changes would be enough. They are at the core a very strong team that has just been unintentionally whacked down by the change to how accurate interacts with everything. For Kasrkin, I would actually add a new function rule where all operatives can fire las weapons twice during their activations, like bolter drill. And for example, let's say they had like a plasma gun or melter gun, they could fire their plasma gun, and then if they had a plasma pistol, they could fire that as well. I mean, like a las pistol, they could fire that again. So, you know, you can make hot shot weapons. It does mean like the las volley weapon could fire twice. So, for example, if you had operatives standing still, they could now fire twice. Or if they had free APL, they can reposition and fire twice with their las weapons. It means like, you know, they don't get too crazy when they have plasmas or melters, but it just gives them some nice usage. You can either have warriors reposition up, throw a crack, and then fire their hotshot las. I think that'd be really nice for the kill team. And then for cover retreat, allow the friendly operative shooting to change their order before doing the free shoot action. So this is when someone falls back and another operative can shoot. It just means it's more usable for the rest of your kill team, and I think a great change overall that would really help Kasrkin as a whole. Kommandos would also need some buffs, and I think firstly, change Harpoon to silent, because that would just help the kill team synergize with, you know, reposition up, firing like silent harpoon shots, and then setting up for the next turning point charges. I think that's really good. And then just give dynamite piercing 1. Sure, it would be 5 dice, hitting on 4s, piercing 1, blast 1, but it really needs that, because at the moment, like, you never really take it. It's not that great, and it is so limited. So I think just giving dynamite piercing 1 just gives the Kommandos a little bit more punch, helps with the elite matchup, and yeah, silent harpoons just help with the kill team synergy overall. For Pathfinders, it's very difficult how to buff this kill team without breaking them, but I think just adding their old rule from last edition where on Gallowdark they can go on guard and then marker light from conceal, so you know, guard from conceal, that would really help the kill team a lot, just like spreading out more marker lights and help with the Gallowdark / Tomb World kill zones. So that should be really good, and hopefully enough for the kill team for now. For Scout Squad, just repeating myself again, they're a very good kill team, and they are liking the new TAC ops, but they still need some buffs. So firstly, I would give them a 7th point for forward scouting, so they get 7 forward scouting selections, and then the heavy gunners gain heavy reposition on their weapons instead of heavy dash. So this is just for the heavy bolter and missile launcher. Once again, just giving the kill team more mobility without breaking their core concepts. I think it would be really nice way to buff the team without giving them a 10th operative. Then for Vespid Stingwings, the Shade Strain gains the Grenadier keyword for breaching purposes because it literally has grenades, so it just helps with the Vespid playing on Tomb World kill zones. And then also airborne predators to ceaseless instead of balanced. So it just gives you more opportunities to fish for that crit. I think that's all Vespid would need. You know, movement 7 probably breaks them, but at least going from balanced to ceaseless means, you know, you can actually use for at least warriors, you can use balanced again. So you have a pseudo relentless warriors just fishing for those crits. I think it would be enough, and like if it is too powerful, you just revert ceaseless back to balanced. But I think it would help with Vespid a lot because they generally hit on 4s, and would be a really nice aggressive boost to the kill team because they already have ceaseless in melee, so you're not really changing their ceaselessness in melee. It's just making those casino dice even more fun. Then for Wrecka Krew, they do, well, this is the weird thing, right? They're, from a win rate percentage, they're actually completely fine. but I think they still need some help. So personally, I would say tank DOP and charge actions to the +1 APL benefits. So you get +1 APL for doing a fight action, a shoot action, or a charge action. That really helps the team at the moment because they're so hampered by stun, and stun is so strong. So just give them the +1 APL for charging, so that way they have more ways to trigger it without feeling like locked into taking crack grenades for their melee specialists. And then also break stuff, I would make it so it grants one Wrecka point for when it's performed, because you're literally breaking stuff, you're wrecking stuff, you should get a point for it, and it adds some nice static generation to the team, especially if you're either breaking a wall or breaking terrain equipment. So I think that would be nice changes to the kill team that should make them very, very good instead of just kind of weird where they are now. Now, coming on to nerfs, look, hear me out. Look, I know Blades of Khaine are just kind of doing, like, they're still very good at the moment, but they were dominating for the past few months, and I think the only change you need to make to the kill team is for Khaine's Vengeance change from ceaseless to balance. So this is their shooting. The main problem I see with the kill team is that they just, because they get ceaseless on their shooting, especially with Die Avengers, they go up to Relentless effectively, and it's just fishing for crits. The team is too reliable with fishing for crits for their shooting. So they still have ceaseless in melee. This is just for shooting expended operatives. So they still all have balance. It does make Die Avengers a little bit worse, but then they don't need CP to proc it, and it can still proc on ready operatives. So I think that would be fine, and actually makes the Dire Avenger Exarch with twin catapults a bit better, you know, because then it doesn't need to rely on shooting objective operatives or being on objectives to get Relentless effectively. So this is a nice way to tone down the kill team without breaking them. Remember, they still have ceaseless in melee, it's just reducing their efficiency at shooting. Then for Brood Brothers, they also are still quite problematic as a faction, and I think it's just literally telepathic overload from the Magus. Just make it only on valid targets and not visible ones. Like Chaos Cult, their one works completely fine on valid target, and I think it just makes the team fairer to play into. You know, it does make them a bit weaker into stuff like Goremongers, but if other changes happen, then that should be fine. But I think, unfortunately, yeah, the telepathic overload just needs to go down to valid target, and that'd probably make Brood Brothers just completely fine. For Canoptek Circle, so this is it. Like, we're going on to the 2-mode teams. Now, I actually don't expect the 2-mode teams to be hit too much. I don't even expect them to be hit at all, to be honest, because it's too soon, right? It's barely, like, nearly just under 2 months since they were released. I don't foresee them getting any big balance changes. Even when it came to Blood and Zeal, we didn't see many changes apart from like a slight tap. So this is just me pondering either for like this balance data slate or more so the next balance data slate. But based on my experience with them and the win rate, they are problems. So firstly, I would clarify that Obelisk node markers cannot go through Gallowdark walls, i.e. they can only go through open access points and accessible points. So they still connect through walls, but you measure the range normally, so around the doors and stuff. But you can't phase the nodes through like Gallowdark walls. This is generally how everywhere is playing it, but some people still play it as if they can phase through everything. So this would technically be a nerf, but it just unifies how people are playing them. Then for the Reanimator heal, you just make it once per turning point. The main problem with the Reanimator heal is that it can loop. So making it once per turning point means you can't counteract if you've already healed and heal again. So it just limits the craziness there. And then Canoptek Control, change it so it can't be used on counteract and it cannot make operatives go on guard. Because the kill team actually does still need the ability for operatives to double shoot, but the main problem with Canoptek Control is being able to use on counteract and also telling operatives to go on guard. Because I've had several games where I've had an operative go on guard, then they've shot, then I've commanded them to go on guard again, then they shoot again, and then I counteract and command to make them go on guard so that I can have the same operative go on guard 3 times. So you just eliminate those loops, then you can't loop healing, and it just lowers the frequency of what the team can do. And then also, if they wanted to go a bit further, I would say you can remove aggressive defense from Macrosite Warriors, so they don't do the D3 damage on death, or limit a ceaseless scuttling to once per game. I think one of those options is all that's needed. Either you limit how many can come back, or you reduce how much damage they do, because the on-death damage kind of spikes too high. But I definitely see the first 3 bullet points happening. I don't know if the last one will happen, either this Balance Dataslate or the next one. But I think with all of those changes, the kill team comes like much more tolerable, and then going forward in future balance data slates, you can probably make the ceaseless defense dice balanced and maybe the ceaseless shooting balanced as well instead of ceaseless. But I think those are good starting points to help lower down Canoptek Circle. Deathwatch do also need some nerfs, but the same caveat for Canoptek Circle applies here. I think this is the most, we'll probably see the first 2. I don't think the last one will happen. We'll see, it's too soon, but I'm just mentioning it because last time I didn't do it and people got upset why I didn't mention the brand new overpowered stuff. So special issue ammunition should be changed to only work with bolt weapons, because all the narrative and lore, even in the 2 mode dossier, specifically calls them using their special ammunition for bolt weapons. So immediately you'd eliminate like blast plasma, rending plasma, all this kind of nonsense. So that's just a nice thematic fix. And then Bioscryer cuffs change to work only at the start of a friendly Octa's activation instead of at any point after an action or before an action during their activation. It just eases with timing issues, and it makes the team a bit more honest, so they can't like overcharge, take the damage and heal back up, or do some risky stuff. Bioscryer cuffs triggering at the start of activations just fixes a lot of timing issues. And then the final one, for advanced Omni Scramble, I would change from D6 delays to D3+1. Because at the moment, when you roll a 5 or 6, it's just too dominating if you're an elite kill team. You can't really play around that. So you do reduce the maximum it can go to 4, but the minimum is now 2. So it's D3+1 instead of D6. Makes it a bit more fairer, more consistent, and doesn't spike as much. Because as I said, if you're an elite kill team playing into Deathwatch, if your opponent rolls a 5 or 6 to delay someone, turning point 2 onwards, that can kind of heavily swing the game in a way that you can't really play around. Especially if this is for free, it helps some counterplay for the opponent. But as I said with Canoptek, I only think the first 2 points will happen, and maybe even only the first point. So these are just for future data slate changes. Then Goremongers. So I know Goremongers aren't doing great from like, they're just 45-46% on the win rate, but they are a problematic gatekeeper kill team, and they are doing quite well from podium results. So firstly, I expect none of this to happen, by the way, none of this to happen. But actually, I think Runes of Khorne can be reworked. So firstly, I would increase the damage cap to 4. So the most you can do in a single shoot action in terms of damage to a Goremonger operative is 4 damage. But each time it does so, it costs you a Gore tank. So every time you use your Runes of Khorne, it costs you a Gore tank. But that does mean if you are now on 2 Gore tanks and someone shoots you twice, they can't kill you, right? So you still go down to 2 wounds, but you are using all your Gore tanks to do so, and then you're 2 wound operative with no Gore tanks. But then you could like Gore chain and then run away, so you can have some counterplay. But also means shooting teams aren't dunked on by Goremongers, because the biggest issue is you shoot them down to 2 wounds, then they heal D3+1, then they charge in and murder you. And there's nothing you can really do about that. At least this way, you know, it does actually help with Goremongers into elite kill teams, because if they send like a Space Marine up to double pistol you, the most they can do if you're on 2 Gore tanks is 8 damage over 2 shoot actions, and then you can like do some chip and run away, leaves them in the open. But I think that would be a much better change, and it's not going to happen. And then for the Inciter, it only inflicts bleeding tokens from its own fight and shoot actions from weapons on its data card, so it can't trigger from frag grenades, crack grenades, or when it rakes. This just reduced how much bleeding that it can generate, because at the moment it generates bleeding way too freely and just gives the team too many bleeding tokens. So just it just means Goremongers are almost constantly at 1 or 2 tanks for every operative. Now I don't think any of these changes will happen, but we'll see. It would be nice, right? It would be really cool, but I digress. Hierotek Circle, these are nerfs they should have had for months, but Nanomine, instead of infinite range, you increase it to 8-inch range from the caster, so the Chronomancer can only put it within 8 inches of itself instead of anywhere it can see. Time Splinter cannot teleport operatives into control range of enemy operatives, which will like help a lot, because one of the main tricks is like you teleport an expended operative into enemy operatives control range, then shoot through them, and then you can command them to fight, do some crazy nonsense like that. So that just reduces more nonsense from, you know, Hierotek Circle. And then also I would change Magnify benefit from ceaseless to balance. So when a Chronomancer, well, when a Cryptek or a Prentek is using the Magnify weapon rule, either from their equipment or from their faction rule, it now just grants balance. It stops ceaseless and balance stacking, so they have pseudo relentless. It just means they always have balance. This, you know, we actually saw this happen with Warp Coven, and it's really helped with the kill team, like stops making them so consistent with their shooting. It would just help a lot. So hopefully they get all these changes to finally nerf them after like 6 months of dominance. Then for Raveners, Raveners are a really weird kill team. While they missed the loss of implant, they are still a problematic stat check for most kill teams. And the other issue is because they have healing, the fact they all have minimum 20 wounds is too much for most teams. So I would say all operatives need to go down by 1 or 2 wounds. So they either go down to 19 wounds each or 18 wounds each. Like 19 would be fine as well. Like you can slowly chip away instead of going straight to 2 wounds. But remember, if the kill team, like the other way would just be to remove the healing. The D3 healing is too much on this kill team, so at least reducing their wound cap and just seeing how it reacts for the kill team makes the team more manageable for other kill teams. And then the other thing is for Burrow, this would where it become a bit more complicated, but you must have 2 operatives in the kill zone at all times for friendly operatives to go underground. And then you would need to change it, like if there's at any point like less than 2 operatives, you immediately at your next chance have to burrow up. Because the problem with the kill team, they can have no one on the kill zone, they can have everyone burrow away and then not engage until like turning point 3 or 4 and become too problematic with dominate. So ensuring they always need minimum 2 operatives in the kill zone at all times helps a lot and stops them like constantly hiding, because it means like, for example, you kill one and they have 3 underground, instead of waiting, like counteracting, then like, you know, gonna counteract burrow, they now have to immediately bring someone up, especially if they had that last person hiding on counteract, they're just trying to wait you up, they now have to immediately bring them up. This is just for purely balance purposes, because having like complete denial is too much. So hopefully this happens. Then for Sanctifiers, oh yes, even though they've kind of dropped off a bit, they're still a very strong kill team that are just like still too good. So Sermon only reduces normal damage instead of crit damage, and now to a minimum of 3, you know, so still against normal stuff, you know, they will survive. They still have just a scratch, and they still have those ceaseless defense dice so they can shrug off crits, but gives more counterplay to the opponent. Operatives have to be wholly within 6 inches of the Confessor to benefit from Lead the Procession. This stops like your roaming preachers and missionaries just swarming around the board, right? So they actually have to be within range of the Confessor to benefit from Lead the Procession. Note they still benefit from the sermon rules as normal. It's just for Lead the Procession only. And then for the Null Skull, its range is reduced to 3 inches from 6 inches. Enemy operatives cannot add to the APL stat while within 3 inches of the Null Skull, but it doesn't affect APL stat changes that have been changed when enemy operatives move into range. So basically copy-pasting how comms jammers work to make the Null Skull fairer. It is way too powerful of an ability with too much of a range, and we saw this change for other kill teams like notably Nemesis Claw, so this is just copying that change. It's still a really powerful effect if you aggressively zone up with your Null Skull, but it gives your opponent more counterplay, right? And you still got your like leader deny, all that kind of stuff. So these changes would just make the kill team honest and fine. Then for Void Dancer Troupe, look, Void Dancer Troupe players, look, this is just from the stats, right? Your kill team has unfortunately been overperforming for 2 to 3 months. This is not a personal thing, but I think all you need to do to the kill team is to reduce player melee weapons from 5 attacks to 4. So this synergizes with just all other Eldari, notably Blades of Khaine. And then as a result, you should give back their climb, so they now climb everything for 1 inches instead of 2. So it does mean you lose your melee prowess. You're still very good in melee, but you're no longer dominated in melee. And as a result, you can now climb everything for 1 inches again. So you get your mobility back at the cost of losing attack on basic players. So your leader is still 5 attacks, and it synergizes with how your Death Jester and Shadow Seer 4 attacks as well as synergizing with other Eldari operatives. This is one I think will probably happen, and this is, once again, nothing personal. It's literally just based on the stats. But I think, yeah, if you do reduce their melee attack on players, you do need to give the team something back at least. And I think going back to 1 inch climbs would really help the kill team. So for the buffs and nerfs overview, the game continues to be in a horrible state competitively, as I established at the start of the video. The game hasn't been in a great spot ever since Blood and Zeal released. And then we've had balanced data slates that haven't really done much, either for buffs or nerfs. And then also we've been having like lots of power creep, unfortunately. We now need heavy buffs and nerfs across multiple factions. So hopefully the game devs are brave enough to do so. And then Approved Ops 2025 has done some good shakeups with stuff like Jaegers and Ratlings. That's why I've left them off, because when we looked at the stats, Jaegers and Ratlings are actually doing very well at the moment. Ratlings really like the change to Approved Ops 2025 TAC Ops on missions. Jaegers are doing much better with the new Crit Ops and TAC Ops once again. So like there is, like, if your team isn't mentioned, it's because basically the Approved Ops 2025 is doing work. So it's like for those teams, we can see how they keep playing. And especially if they do all these big nerfs and buffs, those teams will get only better. And then hopefully the data slate drops this month. Hopefully next week, so next Wednesday, ideally before the World Championships of Warhammer. This is something I cannot control, but I would rather have I would rather have this balanced data slate drop now, 2 weeks before World, and we just use it. Look, this meta is not fun. I've spoken to multiple people, casual and competitive. No one is enjoying it. Multiple people are actively stopping playing competitively, or are only playing competitively at the moment because they already have committed to tournaments. Like, I've chatted to so many people, myself included. I share the similar standpoints. If I didn't have tournaments I was already lined up for, or like trips I didn't pre-booked, I probably wouldn't be playing Kill Team right now. It's not an enjoyable game at the moment. You effectively have to be playing 10 out of the 45-ish teams we have to be viable competitively if you want a chance to not even just win an event, like place well, like make sure you have a good time, which is really bad. So I'm hoping we get huge changes, like not just nerfs, but buffs, like really buff the underperforming teams. We've had this thing where they've like done minimal buffs and then either minimal or major nerfs. So just like, as I said, the prior two balanced data slates we had before the last one were great. So we just need to repeat that, have more internal balancing. And like, look, if we get these changes, I think the game would be in a really good spot. The only issue is I don't know how hard they'll hit Tomb World kill teams. I personally don't think they will because they're too close to release. But once again, we now do have enough data. It just depends how far Games Workshop has written this in advance, because they usually write balanced data slates, I think like 6 to 8 weeks in advance of release. So it's very difficult. It's not as fluid as it seems when it comes to like 40k and stuff. So hopefully we do. I would really much prefer, like, as I said, the meta we had pre-Blood and Zeal was so good. It was amazing. We had like anything was viable, and we could almost have that again. But it's really weird, especially like with the power creep we've had, which has unfortunately made, like, it only started with Blood and Zeal really. It's just a shame. So hopefully we get some nice balance changes. This is all for fun. Don't get upset, but people are going to get upset anyway. But, that's pretty much it from me today. Please remember to like and subscribe as well as comment. Let me know what you thought of today's video if you found it useful and helpful. Remember, I've got a Discord you can check out from the episode description below, and a Flinker Element Games, and a Flinker Discord code at Crossfire Games, and a Patreon if you want to give me some more support. And I'm just going to shout out my patrons. So for my adepts of the crit, I have Vadim, Alexis, Arlix, Marshall, the Houston Toad, Dan, Amorphium, Draken, Fangzu, Lucas, Chris, Graham, Tom, Mr. Mood, Dada Goldens, Nick, Supercow, and then for veterans of the crit, I have Ramus and Rolling Zero. So thank you so much for all your support. It really means a lot to me and helps support the channel. But yeah, one video this week. It's going to be a bit tight, because I've got work and then the World Championships of Warhammer. So probably one video a week up until like November, mid-November, so we'll see. But this is just my annual video. I know people are going to get very upset, but hopefully it's for fun, right? I don't expect most of this to happen, unfortunately. especially as this video has been done so late. But it'll be interesting. I'm really interested to see where the design studio takes the game with this balanced data slate. It's going to be a real litmus test for how brave they are, or if they just want to keep the status quo. And my biggest thing is hopefully it's used for the World Championships with Warhammer, but we'll see. But remember, no matter what happens when it comes to buffs and nerfs, you always have a chance to win as long as you can roll a crit.